Welcome to the Lentil Intervention Podcast, talking all things movement, whole food nutrition and environmental wellness with your hosts, Ben and Emma.
Welcome everybody to episode 8. My name is Ben Adelberg, coming to you from Auckland and joined as always by my co-host Emma Strutt in Boona. Hello Emma.
G'day Ben, hi everyone, how are you going?
I'm very good, thank you, and very excited for today's guest, in part because there was no messing about with time zones as he is based in Auckland, but also because this is one special story he has to share. Now, a little backstory is that both Emma and I first met our guest face-to-face in Brisbane over a year ago. He was in the midst of doing a roadshow around New Zealand with his documentary, which we will talk about very shortly. And a couple of us had asked if we could bring it to Brisbane, which he obliged. And I had also arranged a panel of health practitioners to answer questions after the show, which included Emma, and the rest is history. So, Emma, tell us about the guest himself.
All right, so today we have Grant Dixon joining us. He's an award-winning Kiwi filmmaker behind the documentary, The Big Fat Lie. Now, this film was actually inspired by Grant's personal journey. So he suffered a heart attack when he was only 58 years old. And look, I don't want to give too much away because I'm sure Grant will want to fill everyone in on his story himself. But Grant has become a really passionate advocate for evidence-based eating, and the message that he shares through this film is just so important. It's great that we finally have a documentary like this locally, not, another one from the US. So I am thrilled to have Grant come on the show and have a chat with us. Grant, thank you so much for joining us today.
Cool, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Welcome, Grant. So, Grant, let's, a lot of the conversation is going to revolve around the documentary and the journey that was initiated based on quite a significant life event. But talk to us a little bit first about, I guess, very high level, the type of lifestyle that you were living post your heart attack 10 years ago.
You mean pre?
Pre, correct. Whoa, choice
okay.
of words, correct.
It's okay.
Yes.
Put it in simple terms, I was just your typical middle-aged man. In fact, I was better than your typical middle-aged man. I ran a couple of Ks every week. We lived in the hills, so it was a bit of hill climbing. I ate very well. My wife cooked very well for me. I ate meat. I ate vegetables. I ate dairy. I ate a lot of cheese. I thought cheese was pretty harmless in those days. I actually did a research about, maybe 10 years before my heart attack to just see what cheese was like. It was in the early days of internet, and the internet said cheese was great. It was healthy, full of nutrients and vitamins, and I thought, maybe it's got some sort of magic formula in it, so I just continued eating it. Now I know that cheese is probably the worst thing you can eat. It's just full of fat, and then you got the whole dairy problem to go in with it as well.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was your typical man. I had a bit of a pot, I must confess. I sort of didn't like photos taken on the side, so it didn't look I didn't look too good, and I was quite fat on the face compared to what I look now. But of course, a lot of people think that's normal. It's not normal. Far from normal.
And so a very typical Kiwi diet. So you're a typical Kiwi bloke, eating your meat, eating your dairy, and thinking, that's your protein, your calcium, and everything else that went along with it. Yeah,
indeed. And that's what the doctors said, and that's what the medical people said, and I didn't read anything that said anything else.
So adhering to the dietary guidelines, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Were you very active at all?
Well, yeah, as I say, I'd run a few Ks a week in the hills there where we used to live in Lower Hutt. Yeah. I was active. I walked a lot. We did lots of tramps with the family and so forth. No, I was quite active, yeah. Yeah.
And then this heart attack, this life-changing event happened.
Yes.
And you weren't even aware that had happened on the day. Is that correct?
I guess it was probably a silent heart attack. In fact, when is a heart attack? A heart attack, there's sort of you can't really define it. But bottom line was my arteries were pretty much clogged. I was told by the surgeon when I went to hospital that I had arteries of a 72-year-old, and I was 58, or 70-year-old. I think that's an insult to 70-year-olds. They shouldn't be that bad either. So they could have knocked me over with a feather at the time. I just couldn't. I said, "You're kidding. I don't believe you." But they weren't kidding. They were quite serious. In fact, they were lining me up for a open heart surgery. That's what they wanted. They reckoned the damage was too great for me to actually have a stent. So they were going to rush me across Auckland Hospital, and you take 6 months to recover from that, and people die from it too. I have an acquaintance in Lower Hutt who died on the table from open heart surgery, and he was probably in his late 50s too. So it's a dangerous procedure. So no, I wasn't expecting it. I was really taken aback that my health was so bad when I was feeling reasonably good at the time.
Now you say you had a silent heart attack. So explain a little bit more about what does that actually mean, and therefore how did you actually know you suffered something?
Yeah, well, if you watch my doco, all the stories in there. But basically, 6 months before I went to hospital, I ruptured my Achilles tendon. So that means I didn't do any exercise for 6 months. And I'm thinking back, that may have saved my life, because if I'd carried, because at the time I was all running now and then, not as much as I do now, but a bit. And that may have just sort of kept me above the Plimsoll line, so to speak, and maybe seemed like I was healthy. And then I could have had a heart attack and died on the spot. It will have happened any time, in actual fact. So, but because I hadn't been active for 6 months and I was eating the usual fatty food, it was actually Christmas Day that I actually got the first signs that something was wrong, because I had a bit of an episode, which I recovered from, and that probably was the heart attack. And then a couple of days after that, I decided to go back to the gym, because I hadn't been to the gym for 6 months. So I went to the gym and I ran on the treadmill, and after about 5-10 minutes, I started getting this bit of a pain in my chest. I wasn't sore, it was just sort of a bit of annoyance. So I'd stop, and then I'd try it again, and it happened again. And apparently that's what they do in hospitals. They give you a treadmill test, and that's how they know if you've got something wrong or not. So in effect, I did the treadmill test, but I wasn't in the hospital. But that was enough to get the doctors on the case. And then I had a blood marker, and then they did some other tests. And then when I went into the cath lab, it was there for everybody to see.
It's interesting when you say, that the injury probably saved your life, because you're right. It's when you're exercising, you're already putting your body under strain, under significant stress. And, if your arteries are clogged and the blood's not flowing adequately, carrying the oxygen it needs, the nutrients and so on, then that is exactly what we do see, unfortunately, around New Zealand, and I'm sure in other parts of the world, open water swim events, triathlons, run events, that unfortunately every now and again, and it seems to be becoming a little bit more common, 2 or 3 a year at an event, someone suffers a heart attack, and they're seemingly fit, seemingly in good health, but that's what you see on the outside, not on the inside.
Yeah, exactly. And that would have been me. If I'd been competing, I probably would have just died. Yeah.
So what was the medical advice you had? I mean, you advised, to be operated on, but what was the bigger picture in terms of what they advised, to someone like yourself that had suffered effectively a heart attack?
And just adding to that, Ben, if you actually received any dietetic input in what they told you.
No. Well, to answer the second question first, no, none at all. And that really upsets me that I didn't. But the advice was, just going back to the diagnosis, I suppose, I ended up with 4 stents. I actually have 4 stents around my heart at the moment. And they were going to, the compromise for not getting open heart surgery was to get a double T stent, as they called it, which is a very difficult procedure. And I don't think the surgeon had done one before, so he was very nervous. But he was going to try to do it. And of course, the trouble when you do such things, you can actually give the person a heart attack on the table, so to speak. You're awake. In fact, the guy who went in before me had a heart attack on the table, and I had to be bumped the next day on one of my many going into the surgery.
I would have bailed.
Well, you got to do what you got to do. You can be very brave when you have to be. But I said, go ahead with it. Now, in hindsight, I probably only should have got one of those 4 stents, and the rest I could have done by diet. In fact, I could have done the whole lot by diet if I'd, even known a year before or 6 months before. But that's all history now. So yeah, I was in a pretty bad way, and as I say, I got no. There was a booklet given to me from the Heart Foundation, and it basically says, lean meat, skinless chicken. nuts and oils and and so on. It's just not where it should be. And even today, I think the books are still the same. The nutritional guidelines is quite poor, really.
Mm. So, we like you say, we don't want to give the whole film away. I mean, and we've Em and I have obviously seen it, and it's a fascinating story and journey just because it comes from, in my mind, it's a real perspective. It's not a medical expert, or it's not a reporter as such reporting, secondhand a story. It's you telling a story about something you have personally experienced, and it's very real. And especially, so many documentaries are Americanized, that's where they're from, some are from Europe. So to have a local documentary like that from New Zealand, a local Kiwi bloke, going through this experience was just a fascinating story to tell. But what I am, wanted for our listeners now is, so you hadn't got the advice that we feel you should have, perhaps, and you could have gone down the path just like most people do once post the heart attack. What influenced you, or to take that different path that you did?
Yeah, well, I was very fortunate. It was actually almost to the day 1 year after I had the surgery, so to speak, or the procedures in hospital. I was lying on my bed. It was a Sunday afternoon. I think it was actually Boxing Day in actual fact. And I was hearing a repeat radio program on Radio New Zealand with Kim Hill. And Kim Hill was interviewing this doctor called Dr. Cordwell Esselstyn. Now, Cordwell Esselstyn had been in New Zealand that year for a conference in Rotorua. And he just went on about the fact that nobody needs to have a heart attack. Heart attacks, heart damage is reversible, in fact, curable. And they made me sit up, so to speak. And he talked about his book, how to reverse heart disease, or words to that effect. So I immediately ordered the book, and it became my Bible, so to speak, or my second Bible, I suppose. And I used it as a guide for my life from there on in. So it was a fluke, and it was a really good fluke.
So after you implemented those changes, how quickly did things kind of start to turn around for you? When did you start to notice differences in how you were feeling?
It's a process. I mean, I went from black to white. Some people go on a whole food plant-based diet, slowly transition. I did it overnight, and quite honestly, I never missed the meat. I maybe I missed the cheese a little bit.
The cheese, yeah.
Yeah. But apart from that, I certainly didn't miss the milk. I just found that, in fact, if I try to, even if I smell milk now, it makes me almost vomit. In fact, I once went to a house where someone was cooking mince, and I literally had to go outside. I just found it too upsetting.
Yeah.
It was really, really upsetting. So, from a nasal point of view, it made me feel quite ill. But the transition was relatively easy for me. But I saw a change. I got back in the gym. The good thing about it, the doctor said, you can go back to running. I thought, great. So the next day I was back on the track, so to speak. I got better and better as I was going on. And my health seemed pretty good. I've always had a blood pressure issue, and blood pressure is probably one of the reasons why I had the heart attack in the first place. And I think it's probably improved, but I still take the odd pill for that. So apparently there's at least a quarter of people apparently can't get on top of their blood pressure, whereas 3/4 of people can through diet. So I'm part of the other people, but it doesn't stop me getting out there, and I think I'm doing pretty well.
So when you decided to take the whole food plant-based approach, did you first consult this with your doctor? And if so, what was his reaction to it?
Yeah, it was very sad actually, because my doctor was a very nice guy, and he means the world. But all he was doing is just repeating what he's been told. There's no known cause, no known solution, or no known cure, and so it goes on. And he just really didn't take it on at all. I told him what needed to be done, but he was overweight himself. In fact, he had a heart problem himself, and so did his brother. So you'd think that it would sink in, but cognitive dissonance, I think the phrase is. People just don't get it. They just don't hear it.
And once you started making that progress, did that not maybe start inspiring him, or make him start thinking, well, maybe there's something in it?
No, not at all.
No.
no. It was, in fact, I changed my doctor. I changed my doctor because I wanted a doctor who actually was on tune, so to speak, and understood me and understood what I'm trying to do. Sad story. In fact, I've had mixed success, I guess, in getting people to come on board with me. I've had some, but not as many people have changed as I'd hoped they would.
Yeah, it's always a harder sell than you expect. Like once you kind of go behind the curtain and you have a look at all this evidence that's available, if you get it, it's just like you get it. So you think, why won't other people just get on board with this? But unfortunately, it is hard to create that change in some people.
Indeed, and people think they're bulletproof. It's not going to happen to me. It's going to happen to the other guy. It's a lot of that.
Yeah, and that's why your film is so important. I mean, it's an excellent way to get the message out there. And as Ben was saying before, it's a personalised story as well. You're not just listening to some scientist quoting data. I love the little snippets that you put in of yourself and your family. That was quite a nice touch. I like the humour as well. That was really lovely.
Good.
But
thank you.
Speaking of the film, like how long into this change until you started feeling like you needed to do something to get this message out? Like, how did the film kind of come about?
Oh, the next day. The day, as soon as I realised this was the truth and my health was great, I was actually very angry. And to a point, I'm still quite angry because, the people out there, the doctors out there should know this, and they should be telling people, and the Minister of Health particularly. And that's one of the reasons why I started this organisation called EBE. We'll get to that maybe later.
Yes.
But people need to know this. I don't mind. I don't even care if people keep on eating their sausages and their steaks and so forth. I mean, that's fine. But they should be aware, at least, that they don't need to have a heart attack, and they don't need to have a whole lot of other illnesses that come with a bad diet as well, but particularly heart attacks. And so no, I was quite angry, and I am still quite angry about it. And that's my reason for making the film. No doubt about it. That was why I did it.
Well, I'm going to read a quote here that came from, I took from one of the articles that I read about your film. And in quotes, it says, "This film calls for a radical change in government health policy to state that heart disease, diabetes, obesity, and many diseases and cancers can be prevented or reversed by adopting a whole foods, plant-based lifestyle." I mean, you were, you got onto this path of, okay, I'm fixing myself, but I need to get this message out. And you were, you're motivated here with this film.
Yeah, indeed. I totally agree, and that's exactly what we're trying to do.
And you self-funded this, you produced this, you also narrated, so that's a mammoth task. How long did it take you to kind of pull all of this together?
A few years, probably about a year of research and about a year of production. My background is filmmaking. I used to be a film producer director at the National Film Unit. Now you're all under the age of knowing what that was, but the National Film Unit was the original television New Zealand, I guess. They made films for the war, in actual fact, World War II, and then they carried on after that. So that was my background. So I've learned the trade, so to speak. I also worked for Television New Zealand for many years as well. And I had my own production company for a while. So I've learned all the bits and pieces, editing, sound, narration, and so on along the way, and writing scripts and so on. So before those skills, and of course these days things are so much cheaper. You can buy, for $5,000 you can get professional computer gear and camera and so on. So you can do it all yourself. And so I did. I did it all by myself.
Yeah.
So it was pretty cheap. A cheap budget, but because I spent a lot of my time, so I did pay for it from not having an income, so to speak.
But it's doing amazingly well, and to date, it's been accepted into, correct me if I'm wrong here, but at least 5 international film festivals, and has even won Best Documentary and Best Message at the top Indie Film Awards. I mean, that's phenomenal. And now it's available on a number of platforms like iTunes and Amazon Prime and so on. Tell us a little bit more about that. Indeed.
I think it's actually, I was successful end of last year to pick up a agency in the States, Gravitas Prime. Yeah. Sorry, not Gravitas Prime, Gravitas Ventures, I should say. And they promote films around the world that they pick up, they think those worthy of it. And they picked up my documentary. And in the process of them picking it up, they've put on, I think, about 60 different cable channels around the States, and a whole lot of different downloadable libraries as well, including iTunes, Amazon Prime, Vimeo, and so it goes on. And yeah, so it's got good impact around the world, and it's I think doing quite well. So I'm very pleased about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Massive congratulations. It's such a important message, and it's, I think, a really effective way of reaching people. So congratulations. For those of the listeners who, most people will be aware of what a whole food plant-based diet is, but just in case there's someone out there that isn't, what does a day on Grant's plate look like now?
I want to ask, what did it look like at the time when you had to make the change to potentially what it, if it's changed in any way to what it looks now? Because you mentioned, for a lot of people, they'll transition to a whole food plant-based way of eating because of whatever motive they have, but you were literally faced with a life or death situation. So you went all in. What did it look like then, and has it changed to what it is now?
It's changed drastically, but for the good. I never go to bed with a grumbly tummy anymore, unless I've accidentally eaten badly. But I always feel good because the food I'm eating is good. You take the meat and the dairy and the oils out of your diet, it changes your diet quite remarkably, but you still have your Indian, you still have different types of food that you like. You can still have your, I was going to say fish and chips, you can certainly have your chips, not the fish. And your hamburgers you can have, but of course there's plant-based hamburgers, you make them yourself if you want to. So you still get the variety. You just get it in the good sense instead of a bad sense. So no, it's quite different, but really good. I enjoy it.
Now, excluding oils is quite a significant thing for you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's tricky, and I've got to sort of compromise a little bit from time to time, because if you go out, nobody doesn't cook with oils, or I think I said that right. And so I always ask for as little as possible, and sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Oils is a problem, and nuts is also an issue too. Now, there's a bit of controversy over whether nuts is good or bad for you for heart health, even among the plant-based community. But Dr. Esselstyn is quite strongly that I shouldn't eat nuts. So I don't eat a lot, but I still eat a few, I must confess. But the nuts do have a whole lot of vitamins and nutritional value as well, but they do have a high oil. And it's the high oil that I've got to avoid, because that converts to fat. And that goes for all the oils you put on salads and so forth as well. So it can get tricky. And my wife's pretty much on board with me, so that's very helpful.
So do you find you were a little bit stricter at the start to help get your health a lot better, obviously, and then I guess lifestyle and practicality became a bit more important, I guess, long term?
Yes, it does. And who knows whether I did the right thing. If I drop dead tomorrow, you can blame the fact that I wasn't strict enough, but I don't intend to.
Yeah.
If I talk to Esselstyn, he'll probably say naughty or something like that. But hopefully he'll understand. I think what makes a big difference, though, is I do a lot of exercise, and when I do exercise, you do burn a lot of energy and a lot of protein. Well, I don't know if you burn protein, but you certainly burn fat. So that does keep my fat content down. If I stopped exercising, maybe I should be a bit more stricter, I think.
Yeah. But that brings about the importance of lifestyle medicine in its totality. So nutrition, absolutely. I'm a dietitian, so I'm a bit biased, but I think that's your foundation. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of other things that kind of lead to optimal health. Your exercise, your sleep, your stress management, it's all kind of intertwined there.
It is.
And I know Dr. Esselstyn only concentrated on diet, but Dr. Dean Ornish, who had similar results in his heart study, he incorporated a lot of those other lifestyle aspects as well. So it is about finding your balance. And I think, I can't talk for everyone, but I know for myself personally, the amount of times that I would eat out at a restaurant or someone's house, that probably totals about 2% of my total dietary intake in the year. Yeah, well, yes. Now it'd be even lower. But if the body is that remarkable that you can actually reverse heart disease, I don't think that 2% of the time where I'm eating out, where it might have a couple of drops of oil in it, is going to kill me.
No.
Yeah.
I agree. I think you're right. But I think, you've got to err on the conservative side, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And if you were actively trying to reverse your disease, it's a totally different kind of story to someone who's young and, still has good endothelial function.
And I still have, blood pressure issues. And that's also part of the mix as well. So it's another reason to be a bit more careful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that was kind of my point a little bit, is that, like I said, you had a life or death situation, right? You need to get your health. It's when we've had Shamiz on the show a couple of episodes ago, he spoke about the -1, the 0, the +1. Grant, you were definitely in the -1. Your health was not good. So, you did the transition, and one could argue that you got it to a +1. You've cleaned up your diet, you got it perfect. And then, going on the point of Emma, is the body can detox itself from certain toxins, or taking a little bit too much saturated fat, or too much oxidative foods and so on. So, when you're in that +1, eating a meal that maybe dips you into the 0 because you've had too much fat in that meal or something, but there's all the other elements in terms of lifestyle, in terms of the social aspect, bonding with people, family. And if that means going out and doing the best you can, I mean, we're not saying then pile on the cheese and everything else. No, but there's a bit of too much of the saturated fat, or too much sodium, or whatever the case is. That's one meal out of, had a good breakfast before, you'll eat well when you get home, you'll continue eating well for the rest of the week. Your body will resolve itself fairly quickly, but it makes it more sustainable, this approach, rather than too stressful about thinking, where can we eat? What do they have? No, we can't go there. We've got to upset people, and it just becomes too hard. And unfortunately, a lot of people go backwards because of that.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying, and I think you're right, although I have had one or two unfortunate conversations with relations at the dinner table in the restaurant, but that's another story. You don't want to be too strong on it. On the other hand, if I do actually eat a highly fat meal, or something that was more fat in it than I realised, I know about it instantly.
Your body tells
100%, you. Yeah. So if you don't want to do that, I just need to clarify, we're not telling people to go out and eat junk food every time they go out.
Yeah.
Absolutely try your best and, make the healthiest option that you can. But I'm not going to stress that I'm going to give myself heart disease from one single meal that contains some olive oil.
Because the stress that it causes of worrying so much about where you're going to eat is also going to cause health, concerns, because you're elevating your stress levels. So it's balance and practicality.
I hear what you're saying. Now, but one thing I have discovered is there is a middle course. I can eat a little bit of oil, maybe a few nuts, and get away with it, so to speak. But if I eat too much, then I know about it and I realise I've overstepped the mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose for some people it can be a slippery slope. So some people might need to be quite strict. Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Particularly to start with, I would counsel.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, Grant, you talk about you used to be, used to do a few Ks of running before and so on, but I personally know of your running more recently because you've been setting some PBs at the ripe old age of and excuse me for saying, but I want to say you're what, 67, 68?
68 next month or a month or two.
Right, and at 68, you're doing these park runs. Well, not right now, unfortunately, but you were.
Well, in actual fact, I did one this morning, even though there was only 3 of us on it. But anyway, carry on.
Well, hey, that counts. As long as there's less than 10 of you at the moment, you're all good. But you're setting PBs. You're running faster than you have, and your PB is it's sub 29 minutes for 5Ks, which is phenomenal. Not just, we're going because he's a 68-year-old, 67, 68-year-old, that's what he's running. But also the recovery has put your body in a physical state that is able to push itself a little bit harder and achieve. I mean, that's brilliant.
Indeed. And some of the credits to you, may I say, because you gave me some hints, which made a big difference, actually. Just some tidbits of what I should be doing. And, I'm really pleased about that. But
Thank you.
yes, I'm quite proud about the fact that I run. I think I know my family because I keep on boasting about it.
Yeah.
But no, I have increased my times over the last 2 or 3 years, and I've been running ever since. I ran a bit before I had the heart attack, but not as much as I do now, and I don't think nearly as well as I do now. I feel really good actually when I run on a good day. It's great.
Well, it just goes to show, we keep telling people that it's it's very anecdotal when you change your diet and as an athlete, or you don't have to be an athlete per se, but just from an ability to run further or run faster or just your recovery, it is real. And here's another example, clean eating and means your machine is functioning a lot better. It's everything's flowing, the blood's flowing well, your arteries are allowing the blood to flow a lot better. And there we go. So another example, and you're living proof of it as well. So well done, Grant. I mean, yeah, that's brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Actually, and because the other benefit is the rest of my body is working really well too. My joints, I don't have any inflammation. I don't have any arthritis. A lot of my brothers and sisters at my age have severe arthritis. I don't now. I probably would have otherwise. And basically, the rest of my body's great. It works very well. Thank you very much. So, excellent. Yeah, the other effects are very good.
Yeah.
And that's an important message to touch on too. Like you've mentioned, people in your family have these issues. You don't. Means your genes are not your destiny. Lifestyle can play a really important part in this.
Yeah. And actually, that's going back to my doctor. He basically inferred that it's in genes, and genes and me being bad at what I choose to eat. It's not the genes, and he was right about the second thing. It wasn't bad about what I chose to eat, but of course he wasn't telling me to eat the right stuff either. But no, genes is definitely part of it, but not the main cause.
Yeah. So continuing with this whole, getting the message out and educating the general public, you have started I don't know what to call it. What is it, as an organisation or a group?
It's a lobby group.
A lobby group, right, called Evidence-Based Eating New Zealand.
Indeed it is.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, well, last year when I roadshowed my movie all around New Zealand and to Brisbane, Australia, so I can say it's international as well.
Correct. You're welcome.
That's okay. Thank you very much. I just ran out of steam at the end, so I gave up. But I could have taken it further. But I think 2,500 people saw it in the end, which was great.
Brilliant.
And a lot of the screenings were sold out. At least half a dozen of them were sold out.
And a fascinating statistic about that, I think, is you found that quite a significant percentage of people that came to those shows, those screenings, were not already plant-based or vegan or anything. It's people that came to genuinely, be inspired or learn or take a message home to someone that they felt should listen. I mean, you found that quite significantly across all the shows, didn't you?
Yeah. In a sense, it's a pity. I should really keep on doing it, I suppose. Just an aside on that, and I'll get back to your first question in a moment. One thing I did do last year was go and talk to a whole lot of surgeons at the Palmerston North Hospital, General Hospital.
Yes.
I was invited by an anaesthetist, actually, who works there, who's also plant-based. And that was really good because I was telling these guys who are very learned and they're very skilled in what they do, things that they hadn't really understood. And I was opening their eyes, and I must do more of that. In fact, we were going to do more of it, but it's sort of gone to the side. So, yes, there's a lot of education to be done out there in different ways. But anyway, a part of that roadshow was going to Gisborne, and I actually showed the film at the second Veg and Vine conference in Gisborne, run by Dr. Nick Wright and Carmen Morgan. No, I can't remember her first name, but her surname's Morgan. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they run this conference. I was actually meant to run in Wellington last weekend I think it was meant to be, but of course the virus got in the way, and that's going to be rerun maybe next year or maybe later this year, I'm not sure. Anyway, so at that conference, I presented my film and talked about it. And then at the end of the conference, I gave a challenge to the people at the conference. There would have been about 100 people there, I suppose. And so anybody who wants to help me, want to lobby the government about this and the doctors and universities and different training institutions, who's with me. And so half a dozen people put up their hand, so to speak, which was great. And
Fantastic.
and then another half dozen joined us in the course. So we're a committee of about a dozen people. I think we've got 4 doctors, about 3 or 4 medical people, and a few enthusiasts like myself. We're out there to change the world.
And I presume all plant-based, or?
Yes, we're all whole food plant-based. In fact, that's part of our constitution. We actually got incorporated in the middle of the lockdown, actually.
Wow.
It happened. And so we have a rules and we have a constitution, and we're just about to start a membership drive. So if anybody wants to become a member, the membership fees are small, $30 if you're a doctor, and $20 if you're not, and $10 if you're unemployed or something like that. Or free if you just want to get the newsletter. So that's what we're going to do very soon.
We'll include a link in our show notes for sure. We'll definitely do that, yeah.
Yes, well, if you go to ebe.nz, that's our webpage, and then there'll be a page on that probably within a week or two with the details. But we want to get out there and change things. We're going to do a few things, such as, we've already had a chat to a few MPs at Parliament. Went down there a few weeks, a month ago, just before the lockdown, actually, in fact. We went down there and had a chat to a few MPs. And we'll write letters to the editor, so to speak, and articles, and we want to lobby universities and district health boards. We made a presentation a couple of days ago to the Nelson City Council, encouraging them to become a good food city and improve the food. And so it goes on. So we're already into the thick of it already, but we're wanting other people to join us. We're also going to start up next year a program of training people how to eat better. Part of the film covers the CHIP program. It's a program put on by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Excellent program. But we're probably going to do our own version, and we're looking about adapting the Broad study. Again,
wonderful. Yep.
Dr. Nick Wright and Dr. Luke Wilson were both key people of that study. It was Morgan Smith, by the way, the other person, I couldn't remember the name. And so they've given permission for us to adapt it. So one of our members, Stephanie, is working to see if we can raise funds to do that, and we'll run a pilot program maybe next year sometime or later this year, and then we want to see if we can ramp it up, maybe get some government money, and the idea is to get people on the course to teach them how to change to a whole food plant-based diet and basically sort their life out and their health out.
Fascinating.
You'll be turning the whole of New Zealand into a blue zone if you keep
Well, that wouldn't be a bad thing. It's certainly one of our goals, that's for sure. Yeah,
absolutely. Oh, that's wonderful. And absolutely anyone can join evidence-based eating.
Yes, it's open to everybody. It's not exclusive. It's a little bit different from Doctors for Nutrition in Australia. Are they up to everybody? I think they probably are, aren't they?
They are, yes. Yep.
Yeah, but we don't have in our title on purpose. But we will always have a lot of doctors on the board, so to speak, and medical people giving us advice.
Excellent. Congratulations. That's a remarkable initiative to get up and running, so that's great.
Absolutely. And starting in little New Zealand, so, hopefully leading the way.
Yes.
But no, that's really exciting. So yeah, congratulations again on that. And look, Grant, it's been an absolute treat having you on the show. From a personal story, personal journey to I guess getting angry and wanting to rectify things, so to speak, and so hence the documentary, and now the Evidence-Based Eating New Zealand lobby group. You're certainly getting very, very involved in it, and it's brilliant. We need a lot of people like yourself to drive the change, and not, there's no point in holding placards and just marching the streets, and it's about doing. Right, it's rather than complaining, it's about the actual action, and that's something that you've been doing, and continue to do, and that's brilliant. So we can only wish you, real best of luck, and hope it succeeds, and hope it goes really far.
Thank you very much. Yes. Well,
Thank you, Grant, and we'll have to have you back on to let us know all the updates of the program when it launches.
Absolutely.
Indeed. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your time.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. It's been really enjoyable. Thank you.
So before we sign off, Emma and I first want to clarify views on the consumption of oils. Now, we may sometimes come across as a little too relaxed on the subject, but that is in fact not meant to be the case.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just want to make it clear to the listeners that we're not actively encouraging people to go out and eat deep fried whatever as often as they like. If you are actively trying to reverse a chronic health condition, then we both really support the all-in mentality, as that's what's proven to work with, the lifestyle studies with Dr. Dean Ornish and Dr. Esselstyn's heart study. They're really, really important studies, and we should be trying to stick to them if you are actually trying to reverse any kind of heart condition. And of course, if you're eating out, do what you can to make a good choice and see how the kitchen can cater for you. But we've both been in this whole food plant-based space now for quite a while, and there is a little bit of a worrying aspect that tends to crop up every now and then, and I don't think it's in line with lifestyle medicine principles. So you can be eating the healthiest diet in the world, but if you are isolating yourself and avoiding social situations that you once would have enjoyed because you're worried about the food, then that's a bit of a problem. Loneliness and isolation are both associated with all-cause mortality, regardless of whether you're depressed. And as Dr. Dean Ornish likes to say, no other factor has such a powerful impact on your health. Social isolation also increases the risk of cognitive decline, and ironically, it actually increases the risk of cardiovascular disease, which is often the very disease people are trying to avoid by opting out of these meals and social situations. So, look, I'm a really big fan of the term rare and appropriate. That's a term coined by plant-based dietitian Juliana Hever and Ray Cronise. I don't know, Ben, do you agree with that?
100%. Look, and I'll give you an example from me personally. You know, if I'm eating out, I'll place more emphasis on selecting a better place to eat, and then when you're presented with the menu, make the better choice. You know, it's a balance that keeps the harmony with other people around me, especially in a group situation, and avoids adding that additional stress to the situation that you speak about, you know, because the stress of worrying about eating is counterproductive to what we're trying to achieve with a healthier lifestyle. So, you know, it's just making smarter choices. If you doing your grocery shopping, easy. Read labels, or, you know, you shouldn't really be buying much processed foods so you can avoid oil. What you do in the kitchen at home, you can avoid cooking with oil. All my recipes, Emma, you're the same. All our recipes, they don't include oil. There are alternatives to cooking with oil. But eating out, how often are you eating out? And if it's seldom, don't let that be the stress. Go out and socialize and live life. You know, it's a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. It shouldn't come down to being food over friends. So go out, enjoy yourself, enjoy the night, enjoy your company, and then when you're back home, you're back on point.
Exactly. And don't forget that when you clean your eating habits, and that's including removing the oils, your palate adjusts as well. So you'll know straight away if a dish is a little too oily, and I know this, that, you know, I might indulge, might be a little bit naughty with a specific dish or eating out at a specific location, but I will not feel the greatest straight after. So my body knows, and it's a reminder. And we've said this before, your body knows how to rectify itself, clean itself up, and eat your next meal the right way it's meant to be.
Thank you for listening to the Lentil Intervention podcast. If you found this interesting, make sure you subscribe and share it with your friends.